Run It Studios is the home of the Run Radio podcast and runradio.net, a podcast and station about the relentless, resilient, and innovative types, inspiring strides in life, business, and beyond. Welcome back to the Run Radio podcast. My name's Trina Wilcox, and my guest today knows something a little bit about my life and what a lot of you deal with. A lot of the guests that we have, are resilient types, whether it's through an autoimmune disease, a chronic condition, or they're just gritty entrepreneurs and self-published writers, musicians, but we all have that common thread of getting through it. So resilience is kind of the baseline of everything that this podcast is to me. So I'm glad to welcome someone who knows a little bit about getting through things and pain management, and welcome Catherine Courtice. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you, Trina. It's lovely to be here and have this important conversation.
Yes, we were connected through Shelly Dryman, who hosts Empower Her Wellness. If you are a caregiver or just want to know about whole health, check out her podcast as well. She's been a guest on mine. I've been on hers. We kind of have a lot of common guests and common interests, so which is it led me to you. And you write, you speak, you advocate. I'm all about advocating for ourselves and other patients because it's a hard job having a chronic condition or taking care of yourself and someone else. So tell me a little bit about how you were brought into all of this.
So my dream as a child was to be a sports doctor. And so I was a competitive figure skater and met a sports doctor at the age of 10 because I had an ankle issue. And from the moment I met that doctor, Dr. Johnson, I wanted to be just like him. And so my whole life, I set myself up to become a sports doctor, went through university for kinesiology. And in the fourth year of kinesiology, during my mid-year final exams, I found out I was pregnant. And my life changed in a split moment. So I became a school teacher. I ended up having 4 children, became a school teacher, and that worked for me at the time so that I could raise my children. But that drive for me to help people with pain and help people who are motivated to not stay where they were.
Yeah.
And so that was always in the back of my mind. In 2007, I ended up having a major life transforming accident. And my life changed yet again in a split moment. I fell down the stairs backwards. I put my head through a wall, and I ended up having brain injury, walking with a walker, overstimulation. But all of the symptoms that were happening are what I've learned now are very similar to what people with chronic pain have. I also have chronic pain from the fall, neck, shoulder, back, and hip issues. So I know very well what it's like to have your life stripped away from you when something arises. So, having a diagnosis of whatever kind rocks your world and changes your world. And so I ended up going doctor to doctor, therapist to therapist. At one point I was taking 18 tablets a day, pills a day, and I still had no quality of life. And so I remember this pivotal moment lying on the couch one day saying, this can't be it. I can hear my 4 kids playing outside. I can't get in the car and drive them anywhere. I can't get up off the couch and go play with them. Making dinner took every ounce of energy that I had of the entire day to have a meal on the table every day. And so I knew something needed to change, and I kept waiting for everyone else to be that change for me. I kept waiting for that doctor's next treatment or the therapist's next advice or that next pill to be the thing that made me feel good enough to have and engage in my life again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so there's a transition there. There's a huge amount of work that I did. But long story short, now I have figured out a way to embrace life after diagnosis, to live with the conditions that you have in your life and make it work for yourself. And so now working with people, I work with people one-on-one. I've written a book. I'm advocating, I'm speaking, I'm, helping people to find that life again that they have. They're here on earth for a reason,
Yeah.
and to find that life again outside of their condition, outside of the symptoms, and outside of lying on the couch day in and day out.
Well, and how did you do that? How did you get to that point where you had in your mind you knew you needed to get off the couch, but how did you make that happen? How did you know there how did you dig out? Because when you are lying there and you're in pain, all you're thinking is for that moment to let up and maybe you can catch a breath. And it's hard to think beyond that moment.
Mhm. Absolutely. It's really hard. And so often what happens when we have symptoms that are keeping us down, we're focusing on those.
Mhm.
I talked about at the beginning of this segment, finding out that I was pregnant with my first child, when I had a huge dream that I was zeroed in on, that I was heading towards, and that was all I ever wanted to be and do since the time I was in grade 4. It ended in a split moment.
Mhm.
Same when I fell down those stairs. I was teaching full time. I had 4 businesses with my husband at the time, 4 children in competitive hockey. I didn't have time to be down,
Yeah.
but I had no choice,
Yeah.
but life changed again in a split moment. So what I do now is talk about the lemons that we have in our life. And this kind of ties in with the book that I wrote, When Life Gives You Lemons, Choose the Lime. But life gives us lemons. No person that you're ever going to meet in your life has made it through without having things go wrong,
Mhm.
without, losing somebody that was very significant to them, you know, not being able to do the things that you've dreamed of, like me being a sports doctor my whole life, um, falling down the stairs and my life completely changing, no longer being able to be a school teacher or engaging with my children. Life gives us lemons. A lemon could be a flat tire. A lemon could be spilling a homemade pot of soup that you just spent all day simmering. Those are lemons. Those are things that happen in our lives. The severity of them are different for everyone, but no one gets through life without lemons. And so my approach to this is choosing the lime. We have the power of choice. And this is something that I talk about a lot. We can't control the lemons that happen in our life. They're there, but we can control how we approach it. We
Mhm.
can control how we think about it. We can control the choices that we make day to day, and not allow the lemon to control what we're doing, because the lemons are going to be there. And so how did I get myself out was very much through the framework that I coach my clients. And it's called the ARC framework. So AARC: acknowledge, accountability, reframe, and choice. So we need to start where we are right now. And this is where I started to realize nothing was going to change until I changed.
Mhm.
No person was going to walk in my door and sprinkle magic dust on me and make everything better.
Mhm.
No, that was never going to happen. Going to bed every night thinking, okay, tomorrow it's all going to be gone. It doesn't happen that way. The only way we can make change in our life is by action and by doing things. And so looking at our old stories, looking at the beliefs that we have, acknowledging the uncertainty because life has changed. I was always saying to myself, I just want my old life back. But that life was gone and it was sitting at the bottom of those stairs and it was never going to be the same ever again. But it's that way in any lemon that we have in our life. Life changes consistently year after year. If you look at your life and what it looked like 5 years ago, there are so many changes. And yet we as humans are so resistant to change.
Mm-hmm.
We want to hang on to certain things. And so we need to really acknowledge those things and allow the uncertainty to pop up and to be curious in there.
Did
The
you have,
second,
oh,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
was going to go through
Yeah.
I just did acknowledge. I'll go through accountability, reframe, and choice, and then
Absolutely.
we can go on from there. So accountability is kind of taking a moment to mourn the life that you did lose. Okay, I have this condition. I have this situation that I'm in. I have this lemon that has changed my life completely. My life is never going to look the same again. And that was a really hard thing, but we need to allow ourselves to mourn. We need to allow ourselves to take a moment and let go of the things that we really don't want to let go of, and become curious as to what are the things that I can go towards now. Because what was keeping me on the couch was thinking that I didn't have a life to go to. I had lost the life that I had, and that was keeping me on the couch. It was keeping my world small because I was focusing on the lemon, focusing on the issues that I had. And so if we can get curious as to what do I really enjoy doing? What can I do? And so for me, the first thing, because I couldn't read, I couldn't watch TV, lights and noises were overstimulating for me. So I started knitting.
Mm-hmm.
It was the one thing that I could do. So I got curious as to the small actions that I could take, and that I wanted to take. And so it started to bring excitement in. I started to have other things to talk about besides my condition.
Mm-hmm.
Started thinking about other things. And so that's where the reframe comes in. So reframing the way we talk, reframing the way we think, reframing the way we share things with people. It's a different perspective, and that's where choosing the line comes in. We're choosing a different thought process. Neuroplasticity really comes into play here, which I'm sure, well, I'm not sure if you know much about neuroplasticity, but we have been trained our whole life, and we've trained ourselves to think the same way over and over. And so it's a very brave thing to do, to try something new, especially when we don't think it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And we do need to have some patience in there and believe that things are possible. Getting that yeah, but out of our vocabulary,
Mm-hmm.
and believing that it's possible. And then the last part of the ARC framework is choice. So what is the purpose? What is your purpose? What's your get your feet on the floor moment every day? And so for me, I couldn't go back. I wasn't going to be a sports doctor. I couldn't go back to teaching. It was too much stimulation. I started working on my mental health. I started working on my connection with my body. I started really listening and trusting that my body's messages that it was telling me, it wasn't that my body was against me, which is what I always said to myself. It was that my body was trying to speak to me, and yet I was not listening. We were disconnected. And so getting curious as to that part, and then really believing that anything is possible. Because the doctors rolled up their arms and said, you're a drain on the medical system, go home. This is the way you're going to be the rest of your life. And so if we take those doctors' prescriptions and believe them, which so often we do, our life yet again maintains that focus on the lemons. And so there's hope. And that I think that hope factor is so, so important because it gets us out of the lemons and focusing on the limes, focusing on something new.
Do you feel like you approached things differently from when you fell, from when you first had the change in your life when school was interrupted?
Absolutely. Sorry, can you say that question again?
Do you feel like you approached, the two big changes in your life differently? So when you fell from the stairs and you were stuck on the couch, was that a different transition than when you realized I'm going to school and oh wait, that's gotta something's gonna have to go look different now? Were those
Yes.
approaches to the new focus different?
Absolutely. It was a fairly easy pivot for me. I call them pivots, when I found out I was pregnant because the joy of having children, I was so thrilled to be a mom. She just made me a grandma this year of two.
Oh,
So, yeah, she's got like Irish twins. So, um, the youngest is now 3 months old, but that transition was fine. I had a joyful outcome of that lemon, so to speak. But the transition from falling down the stairs and I lost everything.
yeah.
I lost everything. I lost my marriage. I lost my home. I lost all my friends. I lost my career. I lost everything. And so that transition, um, that mourning aspect really comes into play, but also what do I love to do? And it's interesting because what I love to do and what I wanted to do from 10 years old is exactly what I'm doing now.
Mm.
I'm helping people who want to get better. I'm helping people who want to move again. And so I feel as though, God had a plan for me. I thought I had the plan of becoming a sports doctor, but he really wanted me to have that foundational knowledge of kinesiology of the body, of pain, of how the body works and biomechanics to transition myself to get moving again, but also now to help other people to embrace their life with a diagnosis.
Well, and anyone with physical pain knows that a lot of emotional pain comes along with that. What's your recommendation on that process too? Because they do go hand in hand and you've got to fix them both together, but sometimes it's hard to even pick one.
Hmm. And you said physical pain comes with emotional pain. And I'm going to also say emotional pain comes with physical
Right,
pain.
exactly.
They really do go hand in hand, and it's really hard to understand and acknowledge and realize that sometimes the emotional triggers are causing the inflammation, causing the pain, causing the symptoms. Um, and people don't want to approach the emotional aspects. They just want that pill to take their issues away. And so there really needs to be a partnership in that. And that is why I really dove in and have been trained in many, many counseling modalities, the emotional aspects, because I realized that all of it combined creates the issues that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And if we just deal with one aspect, it doesn't work. They're really very, very much combined.
At one point you said you were taking several pills a day.
Mhm.
And I guess from your perspective, were you over medicated then?
Absolutely. And my body was reeling afterwards, trying to find um, symbiosis again,
Uh-huh.
if that's a good word. 18 pills. But the thing that is so remarkable to me is that every time I went to a doctor, the prescription pad would be the first thing that they would grab. And, you know, stacking medications on top of medications on top of medications. But what is so remarkable is it was not changing the quality of my life. I would have been 100% willing to take 18 pills a day for the rest of my life if it was giving me my life back or giving me the ability to engage, but it was doing the opposite.
And let's talk about that, because I feel like it's a really important topic for especially newly diagnosed individuals that are not familiar with doing the insurance hoops, the doctor hoops, all of those things that you've got to be on top of. It can be overwhelming, and you could easily fall into the doctor said so trap, or be very resistant and like, no, doctor doesn't know. How do you find that sweet spot? And it's very difficult, in my opinion, to find it, but there does have to be, this is what I need, this maybe not so much. And how do I find the right doctor that's going to advocate for me?
Mm.
Have an
This
answer?
is such an important topic.
It is so.
And there's so many nuggets in what you talked about. We can really fall into, and there are so many people who only listen to what their doctor says. And to me, that's a scary place to be. There are people who will not listen to a word that their doctor says, and that's a very scary place to be as well. I feel as though we need to find, you know, the bell curve. We need to be sitting in the top of that bell curve, kind of bouncing back and forth between, because there is merit in both. We spend 365 days a year, every single hour with ourselves. And if you look at how many minutes you spend with your doctor in a year, they have no clue, after speaking with you for 3 minutes, what you are dealing with, what you are going through. And so you are the one that knows your body the best. And that is what I would say. And so if your doctor is not listening, you write to them. You make notes. You create a pain chart. You create a symptoms chart. You log what you're eating. You log what you're taking. You log the exercise that you're doing. You log how long you can do things. Log your life. You will learn so much about yourself. And then you have the information, because a doctor's going to say, when did that start? And you're going to say, oh, it's been forever. You know, when does the pain happen? So often I just said, I'm having a bad pain day. It really wasn't. It was a few bad moments. It may have been an hour, it may have been half a day, but the more that I started to be aware of where my symptoms were and what was happening, I started realizing it wasn't my whole life.
Yeah.
I started realizing how much more control I had over my symptoms when I started to listen to them. And so now my symptoms don't run my life. I run my symptoms. And so as soon as it peeks their head up or starts to speak to me, I pay attention. And I don't allow my symptoms to start having a temper tantrum and take over my days. It used to be, if I didn't listen, you know, if I had a really busy day, I'd be on the couch for 3 days in a row. And now I don't need to do that because I'm listening moment to moment. But, you know, as far as the medications, as far as the doctors, we need to find our team. You need to find, because it is different for every single person. And it's very, very important in this, when, you know, if you're a coaching client of mine, we work on what your and who your team is and what your toolbox is made out of, because no two toolboxes are made the same. For me, it was sleep. I needed to stop using an alarm. I needed to sleep when my body was telling me to sleep. And I needed to be up when my body was telling me to be up. And that was the beginning of my beautiful transition. But before, I was medicating myself to sleep, medicating myself to be up. My body didn't know what it was doing. And so you know, you need to be the one that is in control, not your doctor.
Mhm.
You need to be the one who is reading the symptoms that you're having and saying, okay, this isn't working. You know, one of my questions, what is it in your life right now that is not working? Ask yourself that question and focus on that area and go through the ARC framework, acknowledge, accountability, reframe, choice, all of those,
Mhm.
and take yourself through that so that you start learning more about what your body, what your mind is trying to speak to you. That relationship, that symbiosis, that, you know, learning how to do that would be like, it's life changing.
Mhm. Very much. Let's talk a little bit about your Facebook group. Um,
Oh,
I know that finding a good group can be difficult.
mhm.
There are some that you almost just want to stay away from because they will drag you down. And there are some that are nothing but toxic positivity. Finding a good group is important. Do you have any tips on someone looking for your group or other groups that are beneficial? What to watch for that are going to improve your situation?
Mm. Wow, that is a great question. So, my Facebook group, it's private. Uh, People can go in and ask questions or speak or private message me at any point in time. My Facebook group, and I'm being very honest, is quite quiet.
Mhm.
I am a member of many Facebook groups and that are centered around chronic pain, and it is a place for people to vent about the issues that they're experiencing. And you can quite seriously get sucked into that negative focal energy, focusing on the lemons. And I'm not discounting that the lemons are there. The lemons
Right.
are in our life.
Right.
And that is part of my framework, that we do acknowledge it and that we have some accountability around those lemons. They're there,
Mhm.
but we do have, and this is where I focus, is that reframing and the choice, that the actionable steps that we can make. And that's where my focus is in my Facebook group. The best part of my program, well, it's not the best part, but there's three parts to my program that I work with people if they become a client. And it is the group portion. I have a group portion. Anyone who's in my one-on-one program becomes a member of a group. I have a number of groups and I place people in the group where I feel that they would best fit. And we meet once a week, and these groups are becoming like family. And people have a space, and this is so important, and this is what I want to approach here, is when we have a chronic condition or a diagnosis or constant symptoms, we feel very alone. We feel that people do not understand us. We're constantly complaining about the symptoms that we're having to our partner, to our children, to our friends, to our family, to our colleagues, and people get sick of hearing about it.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of us have symptoms that are never going to go away.
Mhm.
And so, but being in a group setting where you're with other people who have chronic pain, who have conditions, who have issues on a daily basis, where you're a little bit anonymous because you don't live, you're not neighbors, you're not seeing each other every week, every day, but you have a place to go and just be authentic. And it's interesting. One of my group sessions was last night, and we were talking about how powerful the group is, because you can be yourself, but you know that you can connect with any one of the people in your group outside of group hours, and they would be there for you, because we go in and we share authentically about what's going on and our real person. Where outside, 3 in 5 people have chronic pain, but
Mhm.
you wouldn't know as you're walking down the street that 60% of every people that you see have an issue going on. We all want to appear as though we've got it together, that we're perfect. We want to be able to do everything and not be noticed. But in a group setting where you have like-minded people, it's a really, really powerful and healing place to be. And my group members never miss. They never, ever miss, because it's such a powerful aspect of the one-on-one program.
Excellent. Tell people where they can go to get When Life Gives You Lemons, Choose the Lime, and any
Okay.
other information about you.
Okay, so Embracing Life After Diagnosis, When Life Gives You Lemons, Choose the Lime is my book. You can find that on Amazon. Actually, in the near future, if you want a personalized, what do you call it when an
Signed
author
copy?
signs the book?
Autographed copy?
Yeah, an autograph copy. If you want an autograph copy, just message me and I can send you off one. We can just do some sort of an e-transfer or something. But Amazon is the best place to find my book, or you can go on my website, which is catherinecourtice.com, and you can sign up to chat with me. I've done a number of interview series where I've interviewed top doctors and therapists. There are some phenomenal resources in there, so you can get access to that. If you do come to my website, there's a free resource called Resistance to Possibility. It's a little workbook that can take you through that but that I mentioned, where we're in resistance. You don't know what I'm experiencing. You don't know the issues that I have. But that I've tried that won't work. When we're in resistance, we're staying stuck. We're staying with the lemons. We're focusing on the lemons. And so it's a little workbook to help you transition over to focusing on the limes, to the possibility of life and finding that hope again. So my website, you can come to Overcome Chronic Pain. That's the private Facebook group. And those are the spots to find me.
Excellent. Thank you for spending some time sharing a little bit about your journey. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Trina. It was a lot of fun.
Come back anytime. Catherine Courtice with Overcoming Chronic Pain. You can follow along and connect to any of the platforms you like from runradio.net.